She walked into that national television studio wearing a tailored $2,000 suit, holding her head high like she was about to change her life and become the next great American business success story. She had no idea I was sitting in the executive green room just 30 feet down the hallway, holding the legal receipts that were about to obliterate her entire world. My sister thought she had pulled off the ultimate intellectual heist. She stood in front of the production crew, practicing her $1 million pitch in the mirror, completely unaware that the ground beneath her feet was already crumbling. Follow my story until the end to see how the ultimate betrayal turned into the most satisfying exposure on national television. Comment below with the city or country you're watching from so I can see how far my voice is reaching. My name is Megan, and at 27 years old, I learned the hardest lesson of my life. Blood doesn't make someone loyal. It just gives them closer access to steal what you've bled for. For as long as I can remember, my younger sister, Maya, was the undisputed star of our household. She was charismatic, charming, and effortlessly persuasive, while I was the methodical, quiet worker who spent her nights tucked away behind a stack of notebooks and computer monitors. If Maya got a C on her report card, my parents threw a dinner party to celebrate her effort. If I spent 6 months developing a software model or mastering a complex financial system, my mother would give me a distracted nod before asking if I could help Maya organize her wardrobe or drive her to a party. I accepted it for years. I built my life around discipline. After graduating with honors in computer science and business analytics, I didn't chase flashy corporate titles. I had a vision. For 18 exhausting months, I sacrificed my weekends, my social life, and my entire savings to design a revolutionary supply chain optimization platform designed for small regional businesses. I wrote every line of code. I mapped out every financial projection. I personally ran beta tests with local farmers and artisans, proving that my system could cut logistics costs by 40%. It wasn't just a business plan to me. It was 18 months of my sweat, my tears, and my late-night anxiety attacks packed into a 300-page operational blueprint. 4 months ago, during our family's Sunday dinner, Maya was complaining as usual about her stagnant career at a boutique marketing firm. She was tired of answering to bosses, tired of living on a budget, and desperate for the kind of prestige that money couldn't buy. My mother sighed across the table, looking at me with that familiar, subtle pressure. "Megan, you're so good with strategy. Why don't you help your sister come up with a business idea? She has the personality for it. You two could be partners." I didn't want a partner, but I loved my sister. I wanted to believe that if I let her into my world, we could finally connect as equals. That night, in my home office, I opened my personal cloud drive. I walked Maya through my entire blueprint, the proprietary algorithm, the brand name Logicore, the supply chain model, the vendor contact list, and the exact pitch deck I had designed for investors. I even gave her temporary read-only access to a shared folder so she could read the executive summary and understand my vision. Maya's eyes sparkled as I walked her through it. She kept repeating how brilliant it was, how proud she was of me. For the first time in my life, I felt genuine warmth from my sister. 3 weeks later, that warmth turned into ice. I was working late at my desk when a notification popped up on my email. It was an automated cloud security alert indicating that a large volume of files from my private development directory had been downloaded to an external drive. My stomach plummeted. I checked the access logs immediately. The download originated from the secondary user profile I had temporarily granted to Maya. She hadn't just read the executive summary. She had duplicated the entire source code repository, the financial formulas, the vendor agreements, and the pitch presentation. I called her instantly. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I could barely catch my breath. She didn't answer. I texted her. Nothing. 2 days later, my mother called me, her voice practically trembling with artificial joy. "Megan, have you heard the incredible news? Maya got selected for the National Entrepreneurship Showcase, the big televised investor competition. She submitted a brilliant logistics platform idea, and the producers picked her out of 50,000 applicants. She's going to be on TV." Air completely left my lungs. "What did you say?" I whispered, clutching the edge of my desk. She calls it *Logie Core, my mother gushed, blissfully ignorant or entirely indifferent. She said she came up with it during a flash of inspiration last month. Isn't that incredible? She's flying out to Los Angeles for the final pitch round next month. I sat in complete, deafening silence. My sister hadn't just borrowed my idea. She had stolen my life's work, put her name on the cover, and submitted it to the highest-profile entrepreneurship competition in the country. I drove straight to my parents' house. When I confronted Maya in the living room, showing her the download logs on my phone, she didn't look guilty. She didn't even blush. She simply crossed her arms, rolled her eyes, and looked at me with pure, cold disdain. "Oh, please, Megan," she sneered, her voice full of unbelievable arrogance. "You were never actually going to do anything with those notes. You're a background technician. You sit behind a screen all day. You don't have the charisma or the look to pitch to billionaire investors on national television. I'm doing this company a favor. Once I get the investment, I'll hire you as a chief technical officer or something. You should be thanking me for getting your boring computer code into the spotlight." My mother stepped between us, looking at me like I was the unreasonable one. "Megan, stop making a scene," my mother said sternly. "Your sister is trying to make something of herself. You always have to be so possessive over everything. It's a family effort. Let her take the lead for once." That was the moment the remaining fragments of my childhood sentimentality evaporated. They didn't see me as a daughter or a sister. They saw me as a resource to be harvested for Maya's glory. I walked out of that house without screaming. I didn't cry in front of them. I didn't slam the door. I got into my car, drove home, and sat in the dark for 3 hours. Then, I turned on my office lights and got to work. Maya thought she was clever because she had copied the final PDF files. But my sister was technologically illiterate compared to me. She didn't understand how digital forensics, Git repositories, or time-stamped intellectual property registries worked. She didn't realize that every single file she downloaded carried a digital footprint, metadata, and a clear chain of custody linked directly to my master drive. Instead of filing a messy copyright lawsuit right away that would get bogged down in pretrial motions for months while she paraded my work on television, I took a far more strategic path. The national competition rules explicitly stated that applications were open until midnight on the 21st of that month. Maya had submitted her stolen application on the 15th. On the 20th, 24 hours before the deadline, I logged onto the official competition portal. I submitted my own formal application for *Logie Core. I included the exact same core business model, but attached something Maya didn't have. The full Git commit history showing 18 months of daily code updates, the original notarized patent filings stamped 6 months prior, the signed beta tester agreements with local farms bearing my signature, and a digital forensic audit log proving the exact date and time Maya's IP address extracted the files from my server. I didn't inform the producers in my application cover letter that Maya was my sister. I simply submitted my pristine, documented application and let the system run its course. 2 weeks later, I received an email from the lead producer. The selection committee had flagged 2 identical entries for the finals, one from Maya and one from me. But because the production team was obsessed with high-stakes drama and ratings, they didn't immediately disqualify either of us. Instead, their legal team conducted a private preliminary review of my time-stamped evidence. The head of legal called me personally. When he saw the 18-month digital paper trail versus Maya's 2-week-old PDF documents, his reaction was immediate. They realized they had caught a massive case of corporate theft on camera before it even aired. They invited both of us to the final television tapping in Los Angeles. Maya believed she was flying out as the sole visionary founder. She had no idea I was booked on the same flight 3 rows behind her, or that the producers were setting up a historic confrontation in the studio. The day of the filming arrived. The production studio in Los Angeles was colossal, filled with bright overhead rigs, high-definition cameras, and 5 high-profile billionaire investors sitting in leather chairs at the center of the soundstage. Maya had spent the entire morning in makeup, posting selfies on her social media, boasting about how she was about to close a multi-million-dollar deal for her revolutionary business. My parents were in the audience holding small custom banners with her name on them. They hadn't called me once in 3 weeks. They didn't even know I was in California. When it was Maya's turn to pitch, she walked down the long entrance corridor with absolute poise, stepping onto the central stage rug in front of the 5 investor judges. "Investors," Maya began, her voice dripping with practiced charm. "For the past 2 years, I have poured my heart, soul, and life savings into building Logi Core Asterisk, a groundbreaking software solution that revolutionizes regional supply chains." She launched into my pitch word for word. She used my metaphors, my market projections, and my personal story about watching local farmers struggle with shipping costs. Up in the control room, the executive producers were monitoring every word. As Maya reached the climax of her pitch, asking for $500,000 in exchange for 15% equity, the lead investor, a sharp, notorious technology mogul named Marcus Vance, raised his hand. "Maya, it's an impressive presentation," Marcus said, leaning forward on his elbows. "The numbers are extraordinarily precise. In fact, the proprietary algorithm you described is so detailed that it almost seems like it would take years of senior software architecture experience to build. According to your resume, your background is in junior event marketing. Did you code this platform yourself?" Maya smiled smoothly, waving her hand dismissively. "I led the strategic development, Marcus. I hired freelance technicians to handle the routine coding under my direct instruction. Every line of logic is my vision." "Is that so?" Marcus replied, his voice dropping into a cold, dangerous register. "Because before we bring out our offer, the production team has a protocol when duplicate proprietary systems are submitted to this panel. We have a second entrepreneur who submitted the exact same business model." Maya's smile froze. The color began to drain from her cheeks. "What? That's impossible. Someone must have stolen my work." "Let's find out," Marcus said into his lapel microphone. "Bring out contestant number 2. The double doors at the side of the stage swung open. I walked out onto the main rug. I was wearing a sharp, dark gray blazer, carrying a slim leather folder, my posture straight, eyes locked directly onto the panel of judges. The silence in that studio was absolute. In the audience, my mother's mouth dropped open so wide her banner slipped from her hands. My father stood up halfway in his seat, his eyes bulging in sheer confusion. Maya stared at me as if she were seeing a ghost. "Megan," she choked out, her voice squeaking off mic. "What are you doing here? What is this?" I didn't even glance at her. I walked straight to the center mark, facing the 5 investors. "Good afternoon, judges," I said, my voice echoing clearly through the studio sound system. "My name is Megan. I am the creator, sole developer, and founder of Asterisk Logi Core. And the woman standing next to me is my sister, who downloaded my proprietary files 4 weeks ago without my permission." "This is ridiculous," Maya suddenly screamed, stepping directly into my space, her composure completely shattering in front of the rolling 4K cameras. "She's jealous. She's my bitter older sister trying to ruin my life on national television. Judges, she has nothing to do with this company. She's making this up." "Maya, sit down and quiet down," Marcus Vance barked, his voice slicing through her panic. He turned to me. "Megan, you have 30 seconds to prove what you just said." I didn't need 30 seconds. I opened my folder and tapped the remote control linked to the studio's main presentation screens. Instantly, the giant screens behind us displayed 3 high-resolution graphics. First, the original USPTO provisional patent filing for Asterisk Logi Core Asterisk S logistics algorithm, stamped with my legal signature and time-stamped 6 months ago. Second, the GitHub server repository log showing over 1,200 code updates made over an 18-month period from my personal hardware MAC address. Third, a side-by-side forensic network report showing the exact IP address of my parents' home, Wi-Fi downloading 2 gigabytes of encrypted files on the night of November 12th, using the user credentials I had temporarily granted to Maya. The entire panel of investors stared at the screen. One of the female investors gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "As you can see," I said calmly, looking at Marcus Vance, "my sister did not hire freelancers. She downloaded my complete repository, including my typos, my personal copyright tags in the backend code, and my draft pitch deck. If you look at line 42 of the financial forecast she just pitched to you, my name is literally still hard-coded into the cell metadata as the author." Marcus Vance turned his head slowly toward Maya. His face was an unreadable mask of absolute disgust. "Maya, is this true?" Maya looked at the giant screens displaying her stolen digital trail. She looked at the 5 judges staring at her with utter contempt. She looked at the studio audience, where our parents were sitting frozen in absolute, humiliating disgrace. Her lips trembled. Tears of pure, panicked humiliation started streaming down her expensive makeup. I was going to give her a job," she stammered, her voice cracking pathetic under the bright lights. "She's my sister. Family is supposed to share success." "Family doesn't commit federal intellectual property theft, Maya," Marcus Vance said coldly. He looked up at the security team standing by the wings. "Production, please escort contestant number 1 off the stage immediately. We are done with her." 2 security guards stepped forward, politely but firmly taking Maya by the arms as she began weeping hysterically. She was escorted past the audience, sobbing loudly, past my parents who covered their faces in shame as the cameras captured every single frame of their golden child's public downfall. Once the doors closed behind her, the studio returned to silence. Marcus Vance looked at me, a subtle, approving smile touching his lips. "Now, Megan, now that the trash has been cleared off the stage, please tell us about Logie Corps." I took a deep breath, adjusted my jacket, and pitched my company. Without stealing, without shortcuts, and without pretending to be anyone else, I delivered the presentation I had spent 18 months perfecting. When I finished, 3 of the 5 investors made competing offers. I accepted a joint offer from Marcus Vance and another tech investor for $750,000 in capital, giving my company a $4 million valuation right on that stage. The aftermath was swift and devastating for my former family. When the episode aired 2 months later, the network didn't edit out a single second of the confrontation. The clip of Maya being exposed for stealing my business plan went viral across social media platforms, accumulating tens of millions of views. Her reputation in the marketing and business community was completely obliterated. She was fired from her firm within 24 hours of the broadcast due to the publicity nightmare, and she was forced to move back into my parents' basement, unable to land a job anywhere in the sector. My parents tried calling me dozens of times after the show aired. My mother left emotional, desperate voicemails claiming I had ruined our family's honor, begging me to issue a public statement, saying it was all a staged stunt for TV. I didn't answer a single call. I had my attorney draft a formal cease and desist letter warning them that any further contact or public slander would result in an immediate civil lawsuit for damages and criminal charges for IP theft. Today, Logie Corps is operating across 12 states, employing a team of 30 brilliant engineers and operations managers. My life is filled with genuine peace, real professional respect, and the absolute freedom of knowing I built my success on my own truth. I stood up to the people who thought they could erase me, and I reclaimed what was mine. Now I want to ask you, what would you have done if your own sister stole your life's work and claimed it on national television? Would you have exposed her publicly like I did, or would you have handled it quietly behind closed doors? Comment your thoughts below and let me know which city you're watching from. Thank you for watching until the very end.